Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast, world's #1 podcast for adventure athletes, celebrating those going through virtuous struggles in order to benefit the world around them. In this week's episode, I sit down with Max Glover, who has a YouTube account called Muscle World, and it is fair to say Max is a true adventure athlete. Listen to this episode to find out exactly why I say that. Now, in this week's episode, we talk about what made him carry a piano up a mountain, how he went from running a half marathon to pulling a car for the distance of a marathon, the logistics of his big challenges, why he's taken a break from challenges currently, and how to never fail. Now, at the end of each episode, our guests do a weekly challenge for you guys, the listeners, to take part in. And if you want to take part in any of the previous ones as well, check out adventureathletes.co.uk and head over to our podcast section where I've uploaded all of the previous weekly challenges onto the website. Now, I also give a shout out at the start of each episode to someone on Instagram that's been inspiring me, and this week it is going to go to someone I've been following for a little while, and hopefully they'll be coming on the podcast soon. His name's Jack, and his Instagram is 800k in 80 days, where he was planning on running 800 kilometers to celebrate the 80th year since D-Day, but unfortunately he's had to cancel the challenge due to having seizures. But in my mind, he is at the forefront of being an adventure athlete. He's pushed his body to the absolute limits, and I'm super excited to see his recovery journey and where he goes from here. This is probably one of the hardest times an adventure athlete or anyone can go through, is going through this period of failure. So please go over, check him out, and give him some support, show him some love. Now, if you guys don't know, this is episode 52 of the Adventure Athletes podcast. That means I've released a weekly episode for a year now. This podcast has been going for 1 year, and that's all I set out to do when I started. I just wanted to set out to do a weekly episode for the whole year without fail, and I've done it. Now, I've been thinking whether I keep the podcast going or not, but I've decided to keep going. I was so close to giving it up, but the amount of benefit I get from doing these podcasts is something that's unmatched in my life. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for your support, and I look forward to another year. But for now, enjoy the podcast. So yeah, like I was saying to you, the call to adventure. Do you have a specific time in your life that you consider your call to adventure? What was like the defining moment that's taken you from one part of your life to where you are now?
I think it's been, for me, a series of phases. So I could start off from when I was a kid, potentially, or moving on to an adult, perhaps is the most pertinent one. When I became an adult, I joined the Marines, so I would have had a call to adventure before that, I imagine, to get to that point. But what was a lot stronger was after I left the Marines, and I kind of struggling a bit, stressed mentally, financially as well. So I needed that kind of call to adventure to. I felt I was missing something from my life, a bit of a hole. I was really struggling, a bit of a dark place. And so having that kind of call to adventure then, where I was doing fitness, I was doing training, I was doing challenges, it kind of brought that back. So I'd say that would be my call to adventure.
Yeah. What specifically made you get into the challenges? So you said you was in the Marines and then you left. Like, what was the moment where you was like, I really need to do something here? Was there like a particular time? Was there feelings you was going through?
Yeah, I just felt like shit. I was trying to keep up the same kind of lifestyle I had in the Marines. So we were super fit. We trained all the time in the Marines, but we also partied hard as well. So we were smoking, we were drinking a lot. I don't think it's like that in the forces these days as much as it was, but we were going for it. We were spending all sorts of money, spending a whole paycheck on alcohol, drinking every night, going out training the next day. It was no problem because we were so fit. We could come back at 3 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning, and then be running up a mountain the next day at 8 o'clock in the morning. And there was no issue. If you puking at the top or whatever, you'd still get on and do it. But then when I became a civilian, then it was, you can't really do that. you can't last long doing that in civvy street. So you've got to adapt, and I had to adapt. But it took me a while, and it was tough adapting. So I still had that kind of mindset, that kind of, I was still training. Well, I kind of slowed down my training because I wasn't having to do it. But with work and drinking and partying and smoking, I just ended up going down a bit of a dark place. I was working all sorts of hours. I was working 2 or 3 jobs because I just didn't have the money, because I got myself into a load of debt from said drinking and smoking and partying. So I kind of had to stop all that somehow. So I remember it distinctly, actually. I was having a drink in a pub, in a beer garden, having a cigarette, and I just went, I'm going to do the half marathon. Put my cigarette out, put my drink down, and left. And that was that then. And I didn't touch the drinking or the cigarettes then for quite some time. I gave myself 3 months then to train for the half marathon and the Men's Health Survival of the Fittest, which was an assault course in Cardiff at the time. So that was kind of quite a defining moment there, where I did that and said, enough's enough. And it didn't solve my problems, with finances. It made me feel a hell of a lot better. But eventually, I think it was kind of the start of getting me out of that hole, pulling myself up out of this hole, and then things like the finances and stuff like that, they kind of started to fall back in order after I got my life into order through fitness, through challenges.
Yeah. So your first challenge then was just a half marathon?
Yeah, so it was the Men's Health Survival of the Fittest was the first one, but that was kind of a warm-up for the marathon. So it was like my first ever kind of challenge or race as a civilian. So it was quite interesting, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, I found.
And then going from your half marathon, there must have been like a lot more that you've sort of done in between, because I've heard about some of your challenges, and to go from half marathon to, for example, like we was just talking about, pulling a car for a marathon.
Yeah. So
that's quite a jump.
There was a jump. So then I was actually that was 10 years apart from my half marathon to when I did that marathon. So my first marathon, my only marathon, was done pulling a car. But a lot happened in that time. So like I said, I'll pull myself out of the hole. I did the half marathon, got myself real fit, real good into running. But then I kind of looked myself in the mirror and thought, I've lost a hell of a lot of weight. And a lot of that was through stress and not eating properly, not being able to afford to eat properly as well, not being able to afford a gym membership. So there was a kind of lot of that going on. So I had a lot of muscle mass when I was in the military, but that just kind of shrank, and I got to the lightest I've been in quite some time. And I kind of looked at photos of myself and I thought, I'm not really that happy with how I look and how I was performing well. I was fit, but I didn't really like how I looked. So then I went, right, let's go to the gym, started building up, started bulking up, and I started doing all sorts of things that way. So that was kind of a period then over the next sort of 10 years where I was mainly into bodybuilding, and I was focusing on security businesses, and then I transitioned into fitness, and it was, I also worked for the emergency services as well, so I was real busy with just work and training at that point, and travelling through work. And then that was when I kind of went to the emergency services, and that was when I created like my videos, social media videos and things like that. And I think I always kind of had that I need to do something. I was sitting down a lot in the emergency services, 12-hour shifts, 10-hour shifts, an hour commute, either way. So I was finding I was sitting down a lot. So I was still keeping up my training and my gym, but I just wanted something else. I was stuck in a room, plugged in like we are now, but to the 909 system. So I just kind of needed to be doing things. So that's when I started doing challenges. And they started off small challenges, stuff I could do in the back garden or whatever, pistol squats challenges or press up challenges, just little things like that. And then that was when the bigger challenges started coming. I started copying the military fitness tests and started building them up. And then I started doing other harder challenges, building them up. And there was other YouTubers doing it as well. So it's kind of like we was a bit of a kind of competition going on amongst each other, trying to get a better video, trying to post a better time than what the other ones were doing. So it was a bit of a fun, really, but also trying to build up the social media, build a business, and also trying to make a little bit of money at the same time by doing something I enjoyed. So the first kind of major challenge I did was 120 pounds for 12 miles, I think it was, over a 12-mile mountain range. So I carried 120 pound rucksack. That was kind of the first one. And then when I did that, somebody commented and said, look, why don't you do these challenges and raise money for charity? So, okay, and that's how it kind of evolved then. And that's when I started picking the bigger challenges, like the marathon with a car. And there was another one I did before that, which is quite hard actually as well, which is I did a 12-mile run carrying 45 pounds. Straight after that, then I did pen a van carrying 200 pounds. And then straight after that, then I did 1,000 pull-ups. So that was kind of like my first big challenge. I called it the triple challenge. But that was my first charity fundraiser.
Was that in a day?
Well, 24 hours it was. Yeah, I think it was just slightly over 24 hours because I completely cocked it up. I messed it up. It was I didn't plan it at all. So I just kind of went, I'm going to go. I just woke up one morning. I knew I was going to do it, but it was the day before.
Yeah.
I didn't plan, didn't prep anything, which I know I should have done. When you go into any kind of challenge event, especially when you're going up the mountains and things like that, you need to plan your meals, you need to have everything ready to go. But I just kind of got up in the morning, I didn't even, cook breakfast, off of my 12 mile run, I think it was, carrying 45 pounds, went and did that, and then straight away went up to the mountain. So I was knackered when I went up to the mountain. I think I had a bowl of rice or something, that was literally it. Went up there, then instead of having food, just carried on straight into the pull-ups, and then I realised I've still got things to do as well, so I did it overnight and had a little bit of a sleep, and then finished off the next day. I had an appointment or something the next morning, so I had to kind of fit that in as well. So I didn't really plan it very well, but yeah, it was honking out. I got that one done, but that was a tough one.
That when you was explaining it, I was like, is that 3 challenges? Or is that like...
So what had happened was I had gone on YouTube and I said, which of these 3 challenges should I do? That's how I used to do it, like a poll.
Yeah.
And then my subscribers would click on which one they wanted to, and I'd go with the majority. I put all 3 down, and people were like, 12-mile ruck with a weight in 2 hours. I think it was just kind of a copy of the Parachute Regiment, one of their fitness tests.
Yeah.
So either a 10-mile or a 12-mile, I can't remember. It was a few years ago, might be 10 mile, whatever. Most people were clicking on that, and then a few people were saying, they do the 1,000 pull-ups. And then one guy just commented and said, do all 3 in 24 hours. And I was like, fuck off. I went in the shower, and then I was lathering myself up in the shower, and I just thought, you know what? Do it. Go and do it. So I went on there, applied to him, right, okay, I'll do that on my next day off, which, was like, went to work for, I think, 3 days or something, and then went and tried the challenge.
So not even any prep for it either? Just...
No prep. No, that was what I did for my challenges back then, was I wouldn't prep for it. So I'll do my gym workouts, my bodybuilding style training, and then I'll go, I'm going to try this. And that was what the fun of it was. I was going to try something I wasn't training for, I hadn't trained for, I wasn't going to be good at. And that was what I enjoyed about it. It was just fun. There was no pressure. It was just like, I'm probably going to fail it, but I'll give it a good go. So that was kind of the mentality of doing the challenges back in those days. Was I wouldn't really train for it. Just go and give it a go and throw myself out there and just see what happened.
Yeah. As someone that has done 1,000 pull-ups in 24 hours as well.
Oh, you've done it as well, have you?
I've done 1,000 pull-ups in 24 hours.
There you go. Good on you.
It's not easy.
It's not at all, no.
I'm curious to how you broke it up, and then I'll tell you what I did for mine, because mine was stupidly brutal. And similar to you, I didn't train for it.
Yeah, that's when you start getting to the high numbers. Then you start going, ow, my tendons, ow, I'm getting pins and needles in my hands. But I started that about 6 o'clock at night. I think I started at 6 p.m. So I just got back from Penavant. I had planned to go to McDonald's in Merthyr on the way back down, because I was living in Cardiff at the time, Cardiff Bay. And I was going to stop off McDonald's, fuel up with loads of Big Macs and quarter pounders, and that was a plan to get back there and go straight into it. But the queue was so big in McDonald's, I just thought, I can't be bothered. I'm starting a lot later than planned, so I got back about 6 o'clock. I was like, right, here we go. Started off strong. I was just doing I think 4 every minute or something like that. And then I just crashed then after about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, 10 o'clock, where I just hadn't eaten anything all day. And I was just like, whoa, like a complete and utter zombie. No support. I hadn't seen any supporters or anybody. I hadn't even seen anyone at all day, apart from passerbys on the mountain and stuff like that. Yeah. So I was just in my room, in my flat, just pull up, coffee, pull up, and then I set a timer, and then it broke down eventually. I think it got to about 1 o'clock or the early hours of the morning, and I was like, right, if I keep going on this trajectory, I'll finish in about, I think it was about 6, 7 a.m. something. And I thought, well, that's not really going to work because I've got an appointment in the morning. So I thought, if I have a few hours sleep, I'll carry it on. Then as soon as I woke up, then I was naked, just doing pull-ups. I was going to live stream it or do a video time lapse of it. So I obviously had to stop the time lapse at that point because it wouldn't have been very good. But that's how I broke it down. And then later on, then I just did it around my chores. 5 pull-ups here, 10 pull-ups there. When I was, depending on how strong I was feeling, I think I finished off the last set with just the last 100. I was like, right, okay, knuckle down now. Finish off the last 100. I'd written it down on a blackboard, not a whiteboard, sorry, with a marker, so to track how I was getting on with the tally. And I finished off the last one. I was like, thank fuck for that. Then I was sore the next day. I was dreaming my triceps were sore somehow.
Yeah,
I don't know how, but
my arms were wrecked after that. With mine, it was in 2020.
Yeah.
End of 2020, and so there was obviously all the lockdowns and stuff, but they eased it so you could visit family on Christmas.
Yeah, that's right.
So I went to visit my family in London over Christmas, and I came back, and my dad sent me a text being like, just tested positive for COVID, you've got to isolate. And I was like, wow, really? Thanks, Dad. And I was like, okay, right, whatever, isolating. And my birthday's New Year's Eve. So I was then isolating on my birthday, and that's the one day of the year where I'm like, I'm taking this day to do something that I love doing, usually out in the mountains. And I was like, I can't go anywhere. Like, I'm isolating, I'm stuck at home. And I was living in a flat on my own, and like you, I had a pull-up bar. And I was like, I'm going to do a challenge then. And I was like, I'll do 1,000 pull-ups today. And I was like, what I'm going to do, because I couldn't, being perfectly honest, I couldn't do a set of 10 pull-ups then.
Yeah.
I wasn't strong enough to do a set of 10 pull-ups. So why I thought I could do 1,000, God only knows. Yeah. But I was like, I can do like 5 to 8 fairly comfortably. I'll do it in sets of 3. So I had just a beep going in the background every minute on the minute. Just the timer I got up online. And it was just the loudest beep. It would ring through the whole flat. As soon as that went off, jump up, 3 pull-ups. And I just did that back to back for 6 hours, like no break. I was like, I'll just keep going. And yeah, that broke me. Like after like 200, I was like, I can't do any more. After 500, I was like, I can barely move my arms. At the 800 mark, I was so close to giving up. I couldn't do sets of 3 anymore. I was doing like 1 coming down, 1 coming down, 1 coming down, waiting for the beep, being like, I wish it would take longer.
Yeah, that's kind of how I was doing it as well. Towards the end, there's like that 50 seconds. You're like, what? That's not 50 seconds. That's the shortest ever. So it took you 6 hours in total to complete it. Wow.
Yeah. And I broke it down in my head because I was getting really into Goggins at the time. I'd been reading his books and stuff. And I was like, oh, he did the 4,000 in 24 hours. And I was like, if I do 1,000, if I've done 1,000 in 6 hours, I'm on track to match that record. I was like, obviously it's a lot different when you're then doing 12 hours plus of pull-ups. Like 6 hours is bad. Yeah. 12 hours is horrendous, and anything beyond that is mind-blowing to me. But I was like, I'm on track for that. Like,
oh, without training. When you add training, that adds another level, doesn't it? Yeah. So if you could train for a year for it, then it's probably plausible.
Yeah.
You could get a good score. Keep a run for his money.
I have thought about revisiting it at some point, but there's so many challenges I want to do that I can't commit to that. They'll just take too long. Yeah. But yeah, are you gonna revisit it at all, or you're like, no, I've done it, I'm good?
Yeah, I've done it. No plan to, but you never know. You never know. Sometimes things will just pop into my head, and I'll go, yeah, I'll do that. No, unlikely. I've done a lot of the bodyweight stuff, and I think I'm done with that. Like I've done just for shits and giggles, 5,000 press up challenge, just 1,000 as quick as I can. Like back in the day, I'm talking when I was probably in my early 20s. I think I've done all that now, so I'd rather do other things. Usually involves carrying things or pulling things or lifting things. Those are kind of where my head's at with challenges. That's what I think I enjoy. I enjoy pulling things. I love pulling the car. I loved it. So I could do that every day if I wanted to. Yeah. But if I could. But it's like your issue you've got with the tyres, finding a place to do it. Yeah. You've got to, with the cars, you've got to have someone steering it as well. So you're having someone to steer it and having someone safe to do it. But I don't know, it just feels great pulling stuff. I mean, my gym the gym I go to used to have a sled. I used to love pulling. Now they got rid of the sled now.
So that triple challenge has like baffled me. Like not training and then doing 3 insane challenges that, like, I did the 1,000 pull-ups as a standalone challenge and I didn't train for it, and you did 3 of them back to back without training for it. Like, how do you get yourself in a place where physically and mentally you're able to just be like, right, I can do that?
Well, I think I didn't train specifically for it. I was still training, so I think I've had that fitness. So whether I was lifting weights mainly at the time, I was doing pull-ups and things like that, so I could do a little bit more than you. I think you said you did 5 to 8 quite comfortably. I was probably doing 15, 16, 17, those sort of numbers, so I was doing them regularly, weighted pull-ups, so I had the strength. I did a lot of squats and things like that as well, so I had a bit of a base strength. Doesn't really go too much for rucking, long distances though, but I don't know, I just think it's just you do it, don't you? With stuff like that, you just do it. If you can physically do it, if you can physically do one pull-up, if you can physically lift the weight that you're trying to carry, then it is just a case of not stopping. Or it's a case of doing it in small chunks. It's a case of going, right, I'll walk as far as, that bit of bush or whatever over there, and I'll put the pack down, I'll have a rest, and I'll pick it back up when I go again, and you can just leapfrog all the way. So it just takes it down to how many breaks you can do. And then, so you broke down to one pull-up, so all you've got to do is that one pull-up 1,000 times. You've done 1,000 pull-ups. So you've just got to take it like that, and that's how I've known with those challenges I could do it. When I did the marathon for the car, I did 13 days of training for that, because I booked it and they said, right, yeah, we got a Saturday, it's in 2 weeks' time. I was like, shit, I've got no preparation at all for this one. So every day I pulled the car. The furthest I pulled the car for was like 2 kilometres. But I knew if I can do 1 mile with it, well, there's nothing stopping me from doing that 26 times and then just doing a little bit more, and I've done a full marathon. So it's just having that attitude, I think, that just, you can do it. If you can physically move it, you can physically pull it, you can physically pull yourself, then you've just got to repeat it. And it's just repetitive, turn the mind off and just go with it.
Yeah. How do you sort of set your challenges then? Because if you're just seeing it as, I'm just going to do this small bit of training of like, I can pull a car 2 kilometres, so I can pull it for a marathon. Where does the ambitiousness come from? Where do you be like, no, I'm going to do a marathon with it?
It's just that symbolic thing, isn't it? It's like I could have said I'll do 25 miles. I could have done 30 miles. But it was the marathon. It's that number, isn't it? So I want to do my first marathon, pulling the car. So the next thing would be like an ultra marathon or something like that. It's to be kind of symbolic, I think, really, isn't it? Of having that distance. Just like I suppose it's you with your tyre, you're going to do a marathon. You've chose that number because it's a universally recognised distance.
Yeah. But then where does, because you've the one that I absolutely love is the piano up the Garth, and I drive past the Garth every day, and I always see it, and now every time I look at it I'm like, how did he carry a piano up the Garth? Like, I've been up there once and it's brutal. Like,
so with that one now is that story started 2006 when I just read I was a young man. I just read an article in a newspaper or a magazine or something, and it just said they found a piano halfway up Ben Nevis, and it was baffled everyone how they found it. It was just the remains of it. They reckoned it was been there since the 80s. Turns out that a few people came forward and said, "Oh, we carried it there for charity." There was a Scottish strongman who reckoned he carried it up. Then I believe it was actually him who did it. But he carried like, it was like wasn't quite a piano, it was like a church organ type thing, and I found a photo of him carrying it as well, and it looks quite similar to what I was doing as well, carrying the thing. So having that in my mind, I thought, bloody hell, you must be so strong to be able to do something like that. And they looked at the weight, and I think it was 100 odd kilograms or something that he carried up there. I thought, you must be so strong to do that. So that was kind of in my mind. I'd love to do something like that one day. Ben Nevis, Snowdon, whatever. But then when I came round to doing it, I was like, right, 2019, I'd just done the car marathon. I'd done all the triple challenge, I'd done all those things like in summer of 2019. So I was kind of on a bit of a roll with these challenges, and I thought, right, that thought I had from however long ago, 2005, so 15 years later, or 14, 15 years later, I thought, I can revisit that now. I can look at that. I'm in a position, I think, where I can break that challenge down and do it. Whereas it's not just a gigantic thing that I'm going to try and carry up. I can break it down. I know how to break it down, how to do the challenge, and how to train for it. So I knew I'd have to train for that. I'd have to get my strength up, I'd have to get my weight up to be able to just lift it. And then I had a kind of massive phases, 3 phases to my training program. I was going to do gym stuff and then eventually build up to mountain work. But then COVID hit, didn't it? So that kind of threw a massive spanner in the works. I was like, oh my God, what's going on? It's all, I can't go to the gym, I can't train for it. So eventually I just got to build it up with that one. And I was sorry, go back there a little bit. I'm going to go back. So COVID hit the gyms. The gyms got closed. So I was like, oh my God, my training's gone out the window here. So I knew I could do it. I just had to have this training program, but that went out the window. So what I was doing for my fitness in COVID was I was getting my rucksack and I was putting dumbbells in it. I was just going for a walk to the park or whatever, and just doing my circuit training with my weights, overhead presses, press ups, things like that. And then gradually I started increasing the weight because I was getting stronger with the dumbbells I had. And then I thought, hang on a second, I'm training here to carry things a heavy weight in my back, because my rucksack was weighing like 60 kilograms, sometimes a bit more. So I just started building the weight up, and then whereas carrying the rucksack began as my kind of move into my workout space, eventually it became my training, and I started scrapping these little workouts all together and just building the weight up and up and up and up and up. I had planned to do a different mountain. The reason I went with Garth was because it was in the middle of COVID, and I thought, right, I found a little bit of a window where they'd ease the restrictions off, and I thought, right, I don't want to go book a load of hotels and stuff like that up in Snowdon, because that was my original kind of plan with Snowdon. Get a load of people to go up there and then them cancel it. They say, oh, COVID's come back up again, you can't travel, I've lost all this money. So that was why I went, looked a bit closer to home. I thought Pen y Fan, and I thought, hang on, Garth's about this. When you look at where you start on Pen y Fan in the car park to where you actually get to the top, it's about the same sort of distance as what starting at the bottom of the Garth is to go to the top, even though Pen y Fan is a lot higher. And I looked at risk assessment as well, safety features and things like that of the mountain, and I thought it's actually going to be a lot safer for me to go up Garth. If I were to fall over, snap my leg or whatever, there's a mountain road that goes up along there, so I could have a safety van, which means that it's never going to be further than a few hundred meters away for the piano to be taken off the mountain, or for me to be lifted off the mountain by someone. Yeah. So that was kind of why I went to Garth then. And I did a bit of a recce on it, and me and my girlfriend, we walked up it. And the entire time I was walking up it with her, obviously we were talking and things like that, but in my head I had the piano on my back, and I was walking with it in my mind, thinking, looking where I was going. Okay, that bit there, this bit looks feasible. That bit's feasible. That terrain's feasible. If I'm going up, right, don't go that route, go that route. So in my head, I kind of done it already. But I got to the top, and I thought, right, I've just done it in my head. I can do this. And I knew I could do it. So that was why we picked the Garth, and why we went with it from there.
But it's an incredible challenge. Like, I can't imagine carrying a piano. Like, just the unconventional size of it.
Yeah,
because I've seen a couple of pictures, and I'm just like, what? Like, he's climbed up the Garth with that on his back. It just...
But that was just all broken down, because it was like, I got the piano, and I was like, how the fuck am I going to put this on my back? And then the first time I went to put it on my back, I was like, I'm going to get squashed. But I did it, and I had to have my friend, I had like a kind of storage container, because I got it, and I didn't have anywhere to put it. And I was moving out of my flat at the same time, so I was like, I need to put my stuff in storage anyway. So I put the piano in there, and I just kind of left it until I kind of was able to move again and have space to store things. So that was when I initially first put it on my back, was in the storage unit thing. So I don't know if you've ever been to a storage unit, they've got all these kind of tight little corridors, and everyone's got their little kind of little locker things, haven't they? So mine was in there, so I just kind of put it up there, and I thought, out in the corridor, and I was like, trying all these different methods. There's probably a guy on a CCTV watching me thinking, what's this idiot doing? And I didn't quite have the bottle. I was like, if this does go on me, I'm either going to smash straight into that person's locker there and completely take the whole wall out, or hurt myself, or I'm not going to be able to move, because it was quite late at night, and I thought, no one's going to find me. So I got my mate, and I said, can you just be with me, just in case I do squash myself? And I hoisted on my back, and I was all right. And I was like, okay, this is fine. And I walked the distance, the length of the corridor, slowly and cautiously, and I'm like, well, I can do this. I can support the weight, I can walk with it. And I turned back around, walk back, and then I knew then, okay, I can do this. I knew if I could walk with it, I could do it up a mountain. So that was kind of what went from there with that.
Have you done any other sort of more unconventional challenges like that, where there's just that added element to it? Of like something strange being on your back, or
I did the 100 kilometers carrying 100 kilograms in a rucksack. So that was just a rucksack full of dumbbells. It was a bit easier than doing a piano in terms of I didn't have to have like a team there to just in case I fell, or because I could just break this down into my car if I needed to. So the weight was obviously a hell of a lot lighter than the piano was, but it was a hell of a lot longer distance. I think the piano was like 2 miles. Mainly uphill, so the 100 kilograms was a lot longer distance over a period of a few days. So that was a kind of unconventional thing. Did a truck pull as well for 2 miles, I think that was 2 kilometers or 2 miles. I forget the exact distance, but it was basically an airstrip up in North England. I just basically pulled it the entire distance. It's one of the longest airstrips in the UK. Just pulled it the distance. It's pretty much flat, so you did that. That was a tough one, but it's good doing the unconventional stuff, because when you do it for charity, people kind of notice it a little bit more.
Yeah.
Whereas when I did the rucksack stuff, the triple challenge, that's £200 a pen a van. Even though I was really bloody hard, nobody really cared. People were stopping me, and same with the 100 kilogram for 100 kilometers. I was dying at one point. Like, I was walking like that, and I was struggling. My legs were starting to buckle. I was huffing and puffing, and it was digging into my shoulders. And like, I was just kind of looking for walls and stuff to lean on, if I, just to kind of rest and because you cut your blood supply off that sort of weight. And just shake the arms out, let the blood flow go back to the arms. People walking past like, "You okay, mate? You're right. Oh my God!" Or "You'll carry on. You'll keep going." All that stuff, and then they eventually might start talking to you. So, "What have you actually got in there?" 100 kilograms. "Oh, fuck off! No, you haven't." "Yeah, 100 kilograms. I got 4 dumbbells stacked on top of each other." "Oh, whatever. Do you want to go?" "Oh, yeah, go on." And it actually, people were actually trying it. "Oh, fucking hell! Here's 100 kilograms." And so that was kind of the unconventional nature of that one, but. What was good is a few people did actually go and have a go carrying it for a few meters to appreciate how heavy it actually was.
Yeah, I don't think everyone listening is gonna understand how heavy 100 kilograms is.
Well, it was more than what I weighed. It was, I think it was 103. I think it was at the time 103% of my body weight for that distance was.
It's an insane amount. Like if you're listening and you don't lift weights at all, go and try and squat 100 kilos.
Yeah, but then hold that on your back all day. Yeah. So it's the time.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. Like, you've got the 100 kilos, which some people are gonna struggle even like deadlifting, let alone squatting, and then it's like, now carry that weight for however many hours it takes you. Like 100 kilometers is a big distance as well. Like, if you don't run, try and run like a 10k.
Yeah, it was just trying to get in that figure. 100 kilograms, 100 kilometers, and it was just, I got about the first few kilometers through, and I was thinking, what the fuck have I done? Why have I come up with this? Well, why didn't I do 100 pounds for 50 miles or something like that? It would have been a lot easier, but.
£100 for 100 meters.
Yeah, I think my original idea was £100 for 100 miles. That was my original idea that I'd had a long time, but. A long time, maybe 3 or 4 years previous to that, £100, and I thought, £100 is quite an achievable weight for most people to do. I don't think it's that it is a hard weight for training and things like that, but I don't think it was, after doing the piano, would have been like kind of a step up from that. I don't think after doing the piano I could go to such a light weight and try to say, look, I'm doing this as a challenge, because I was doing that every day in lockdowns at £100. So I thought 100 kilograms, that's the challenge. 100 kilometers, because I want to keep it the same kind of unit of measurement rather than doing it one metric, one imperial. So
it's a crazy challenge, and you're starting to give me ideas now, and I'm hating it, and I'm like, oh.
But that's what I love about the whole thing, and I did write a book about this as well. And one of my theories on it is how, like, you do your challenge or whatever it is you do, and it's great for you, great for how you feel, and you're training for it, gives you that kind of purpose, sense of purpose, and that pride, and it's something we can look back on in years to come. Because like 4 years ago I did all these things, we're still talking about it now, so and I fond memories, a big smile on my face when I'm talking about it. But then what I love about it, I think the most impressive thing is like the ripple effect from that it touches so many people. Like, obviously we raise money for charity, and obviously the charity does things and helps people with the money that we raise, but then it also inspires other people, and then they go off and do whatever thing they're going to do, and that inspirational thing that they do, and then that in turn then goes and inspires other people, raises money for other charities, and it just keeps going on and on and on. And I just find that all started from that one moment back then when you did that one thing that just kind of started it all off. Like, go back to the car marathon, I've had so many people contact me on Instagram and email and things like that and say that they were going to do a marathon towing a car, and it was like, oh, I saw your video, inspired me to do it, and like you said earlier, you were talking about getting tips and things like that for your challenges. They were asking me for tips, how was I training for it, and trying to obviously build their training program as well. So I just find it fascinating how everything's got that kind of reach that's bigger than us, and it just keeps on going, and it just provides so much positivity going out into the world.
Yeah, and I think that's what I love about doing this podcast, is not only, like, at first it was a very selfish thing for me, where I wanted to do these challenges I'd set myself, but I didn't know anyone that was doing things like that. Like, I'd heard like stories of people doing it and seen on social media. Like, I'd seen Ross Edgley, David Goggins, things like that, and I was like, I love what they're doing. I want to do that. But then I was trying to explain it to people, and you just get, like, you probably get it a lot, like, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, that's so stupid. Like, what are you getting from this? And trying to explain it to them, they'll just never understand what the benefits to you are. And it just sort of left me a bit isolated. So then I was thinking, how can I find people that do the stuff like me? And then it just came up in my head. I was like, I could do a podcast. And then I'm inviting people to come, and they're getting like promotion from it, so they're more willing to come on, because, like you're saying, a lot of the times you're doing it for charity. Best way to raise money, promotion. You go on podcasts, people learn about what you're doing, they understand a bit more, they're more willing to give you money. So then I was just thinking, I can just invite whoever I want on, and then I get to know them, and then I don't feel like I'm crazy because I'm surrounded by other crazy people.
Yeah.
And I absolutely loved that idea. And for a while, that's what it was. I was just trying to think of, ultimately, I want to get Ross Edgley on the podcast, because he's the one that really sold it to me of how far you can push these challenges. So I was just like, I'm going to keep building up slowly until I get to Ross Edgley, till I'm big enough that he notices. And then it was just that selfishness of, I'm here, I want to get to be surrounded by people like Ross Edgley. What are the small steps to take? And it started off, the first guest we had on was a free running coach from Cardiff in Fluidity, where I've worked with him and I just find him interesting. So I was like, that'll be a good episode. We'll get him on because I find him interesting and I know him, so other people might find him interesting. Then I had that, and then I had my physio came on, and it was all people I knew. And then it got to a point where the people I knew run out. And it's either they run out, or they weren't willing to come on, or just organising it hasn't been great, because I do know a lot of interesting people. I've trained with Jordan Sakos, who's a Commonwealth weightlifter. I've trained with Gav Bilton, like Britain's strongest man. So I was trying to get them on, but I haven't managed to get them on because just logistics and everything. And then your list runs out fairly quickly. And then we said Rhys Jenkins earlier, like before we started recording. That was the episode where I really started to try and reach out to people that I wasn't in their circle at all. They probably have no idea I exist. Other people I'd had on that I didn't know, I'd known someone that knew them. So I sort of got them through that way. But then I was like, I'm going to message Rhys, because I didn't even know what he did when I asked him on. I just heard his name somewhere. They're like, you should try and get Rhys on. And then I was like, yeah, cool, I'll message him.
He's a good guy, and he's done some amazing things as well. And I haven't seen him for a couple of years, but he's a good guy, and he's a world record for the West Coast. He's done all sorts of runs, and look at some of the stuff he was doing. Remember, he done that was amazing. And then his next one was, I'm going to run all the way down Scotland. They're going to do this mountain, and they're going to do that. And I was like, fair dues to him, fair play to him. That's impressive stuff, and he did it. Fair play. He went and cracked it, and always had a smile on his face as well.
And that was the time where I was like, I'm just going to reach out to random people, and I've had a better response, and now I'm building up to that sort of Ross Edgley thing. Over the past year, it's like changed my life, the people I've met, and like having people like you on, where you are just as into it as me, and like just talking to you beforehand, I was like, he gets the challenges. Especially when you said, I don't train for him, I just rock up and do them. I was like, that is 100% me. And it's just amazing how much of a difference it makes having those right people around you to do these things.
It's interesting you say that, because I've always been quite isolated, and I've always enjoyed being isolated as well. You said it yourself, you felt isolated at the time. Like, I've always enjoyed being that kind of in the shadows type person. So when I think we weren't filming when I was talking about when I started social media, and I wasn't telling anyone I was doing it. I was just going off and doing it. Like, I kind of like that, but you've kind of got to get to the point where you've got to be comfortable with saying to people, I do this as well, and I do that as well. And it is quite difficult to do. And then you say, explain to people. But when you start doing a few of them, it gets to the point where people just expect it from you. So after I'd done when I did the marathon, a lot of people go, why the fuck are you doing that? Like, what are you doing it for? You're never going to do it. Or, no, you're not going to do that. And all the kind of negative stuff. But then when I went into the piano stuff, the piano one, complete reversal. It was like, oh my God, he's going to go do this. Everyone's going to do this. Everyone, newspapers are coming along. He's going to do this. This guy from Cardiff is going to do that. And I was thinking, oh, fuck, the pressure went, vroom. Because with the marathon, I was being told I'm not going to be able to do it. So I had to go prove them wrong. Yeah. But now suddenly I've got to prove all these people right. And it was just kind of a really weird kind of shift of balance in the whole thing. But especially for somebody who is kind of generally wants to keep themselves. Yeah. It's a bit of a paradox as well, really. You want to keep yourself to yourself, but then you're on YouTube, you're on Instagram, you're on podcasts, and you're doing all these things, throwing yourself out there, but you're an introvert at the same time. So it's a bizarre kind of world, but then you do meet people like yourself who I think we do share quite a bit in common from talking to you. Yeah. And we do like the challenges. We've done fairly similar things and ideas and tackle them in a kind of similar way, but it's a bizarre thing. It is interesting to meet people.
Yeah. And you've obviously met a lot of interesting people through doing it. Like, you've met Reese, for a start, who does incredible things. Terry, like, I've got a lot of time and respect for Terry. Do you know Bob Thomas as well? I'm assuming you do.
I don't know him. I know of him, again, through Terry. So he's kind of been I think he's quite a social person, Terry is. So he knows a lot of people, and he's great at dealing with people, great at talking to people, great at arranging things, and he's super positive, and he's got all this energy and drive. He was a family man as well, but he works in other jobs as well. But he does his own training, but he's got this time he's created the Rockman brand with all these challenges, podcasts, clothing range, fitness books, DVDs, things like that as well. So he's done a lot. But he's very good at getting people together, from what I've seen. I met Reese through him. I think I kind of knew of Reese because we were all from Penarth originally, so I knew Terry from school. So, but he had those kind of connections, and anyone who I've kind of met, really, generally gone through him. Majority have actually been through him, because I'm normally just I do it by myself. And I've done a couple of on YouTube collaborations, and a couple of those where I've reached out to people. They've been few and far between, but most of my things have been met through Terry.
Yeah. Do you find a benefit of having people like that around you? Saying that you're quite isolated, but do you see any changes within yourself from knowing Reese, from knowing Terry? Like, do they push you harder at all?
I think at the time, yes. But again, because I've gone back into kind of my family circle now, where I'm very focused in that area, I'm not really socialising or dealing with anyone. But I don't need it.
Yeah.
I'm very self-motivated. I'm very much, I want to do this, I'm going to do that, and it doesn't matter what other people are doing or what other people are saying. So I don't think it has much of an effect on me. The only effect, it would be a positive effect, but it's not a negative effect when I don't have it. Does that make sense? Yeah. So I get the positive, yeah. I think that's what I'm trying to say there. So I get the positive from it, but I don't need it.
Yeah. Where the sort of challenges aren't your life,
yeah,
that's not what everything revolves around for you. Like you're saying, you've got a family now.
Yeah.
You've got to focus on your family.
Exactly, yeah.
So you don't need the people being like, nah, leave your family. You got to climb a mountain with, I don't know, like pulling a car next. That could be the next one.
Yeah. Pulling it up the mountain.
you could pull the train up Snowdon.
Yeah.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah.
You know, you don't need people doing that, because it's like, no, you're looking after your family. Whereas I'm very much deep into the challenges right now.
I think you're where I was 2019, 20, when it's like, challenge, got to do them all. And I was lining them up, and then I got injured. And that was a game changer, that was. Because I couldn't do any of these challenges. I couldn't do anything. I could barely walk because I'd done both my Achilles tendons in. And I was like, oh, fucking great. And I was doing a challenge. I was doing 22,000 jumping jacks. So I was like, fucking great. They went after about 16,000 jumping jacks, and I just cracked on. But then I started thinking, I got to be a bit more sensible about this. Rather than throwing everything at all these different challenges and still doing my training and still working, I'm going to focus. I'm going to shift focus. So when I want to do something, bang, I do everything to it. I throw everything at that. I do that one challenge, that one thing, and I kind of retract, go back to wherever it is I'm doing, recover, and then I'll find something else. Bang, throw everything at that. So that's kind of where I kind of went to after sort of belt feeding challenges and doing one every week, and weekly challenges and then daily challenges. So that's kind of how it evolved for me. And your journey is going to be different to mine. You're going to do things differently to how I do things, but that's kind of the way it's played out for me. Yeah. And I'm in kind of that zone where I've got ideas, but I know I can sit on them for a long time. Like the piano one was in my head 15 years before I even did anything about it. So like I know I can sit on it and think, I've got one in mind. I'm training for a couple of things. But my training at the moment is very more towards being athletic at the moment rather than just kind of going, dig deep and crack on, which is what I've always been doing with these challenges. Now I'm very much like, right, I want to see what I get my body to do in different kind of fields, different disciplines.
Yeah. So you're looking more at like the general physical preparedness training.
Exactly. Yeah. You got it.
That's where I started. I think.
Okay. Yeah.
My thing was because I used to do parkour and free running.
I've seen your videos. You doing these massive bounds and leaping on. I'm thinking he's going to fucking land on his balls any second now, and then you're jumping onto his railing and like bloody hell, that's a good jump. Oh, he's going to jump on that one next, and you will jump over it. Christ, yeah, I've seen impressive stuff. I did see those videos. I really enjoyed them. Actually, really good.
So that's where, well, a bit before that, I wanted to be military.
Okay.
I was 15, the least active person you can imagine. At 15, I was the kid that spent every lunch in the library. I wouldn't go out and play sports. I'd go home, I'd do my homework, and then I'd play video games. And I wanted to be like a game designer and stuff when I was a kid. Complete 180. I was then like, I want to be in the military. I wanted that discipline.
Yeah.
And I trained every single day for 6 months. I would do a 5-mile run in the morning. Then I'd do an hour workout, cycle 6 miles to school, cycle 6 miles home. Then we had an inversion table at home, so I'd hang upside down, do 300 upside down sit-ups. And I did that every single day for 6 months before I realised I didn't like the politics of the military, so I never joined the military. But then I was like, oh, what do I do now? Like, I went from being like this skinny kid. I was still really skinny, but I was skinny and strong.
Yeah.
And I was like, what do I do with this now? And I found free running, and I was like, oh, I could get good at that. And I just started training that, and that was my direction for years. But that's just running, jumping, climbing, like everything you can imagine for general physical preparedness is within the sport. Like you've got the coordination to be able to jump to a rail, but you've also got the ability to sprint because you have to run towards a jump to make the distance.
You could be very explosive in those movements as well, because sometimes you haven't even got a very long distance to do it.
Yeah, so that was like the perfect training board for me. And then when I sort of got a bit bored of the sport, to be honest. I didn't like the culture around it. And I was like, well, what's next? And then I was trying different sports. I tried a bit of rock climbing, tried some taekwondo, things like that. And then I ended up just getting into the fire service.
Oh, wow, okay. Yeah.
So I was a firefighter for a few years, and I just wanted to be good at everything.
Yeah.
And then that's where the challenges developed for me, because I just wanted, like you were saying, I don't want to train for a challenge. I want to turn up and know I can do it. And that came from the sense of I have to be able to do it because lives are at risk. And I'm sure it's the same in the military. It's like you don't question your training because people's lives are at risk. You're not like, oh, I don't feel like doing it today. It's like, well, if I don't train, something bad could happen. And then I just built on it from there. So my first thing was getting into the fire service. I did a 2-week training course. At the end of the 2 weeks, I'd signed up for the Cardiff Half Marathon, and I wasn't going to do it because I was working alongside my training course, which most people weren't. So I was doing 9 to 5, and then going straight from the training course to coaching gymnastics, which I'd do till like 9, half 9, get home at like 10, have this big folder to read through of theory, and then I'd do that for an hour, and then I'd go to bed and get up and do it again. Did that for 2 weeks straight, and I was dying by the end of it. The last thing I wanted to do was run a half marathon, but all the guys were like, we've signed up as well, we'll turn up and do it with you. And I rocked up, sent a picture in the group chat being like, I'm in this pen, where is everyone? They're like, oh no, we're not coming, we're fucked. So I was just like, well, like, I'm here, I might as well run it. Did a 1:45, which isn't bad for a half marathon, first time.
What year was it you did that then?
2019.
2019.
So that was like the start for me. And then I had a week off, and then I did my next firefighting course, which was the fire awareness stuff. So I was in full kit, going into fires, dragging the 80-kilo dummies out, things like that. And then I did a strongman competition without training, Cardiff Strongest Man. That was interesting.
How did you get on with that?
Pretty good, to be fair. Hit a PB deadlift. Did a 200 kilo deadlift.
Wow.
My PB before going on the firefighting courses was 180. So I jumped from 180 to 200 without training, just from the pressure of competition.
Yeah.
Did my first ever tyre flip. I'd never flipped a tyre before that. It was a 300 kilo tyre. So I had to do that 5 times for time. Did a yoke carry. I'd done that once before in my life, but I messed up the technique on the day. What else did we do? We did like barrel loading and things like that. The one thing that I was awful at was the log press. They said it was an 80 kilo log. Everyone says everyone says it was 100.
Because of the weight of that, when you lift a barbell, the weight is perfectly centered going down. With the log, it's away from your body. Have you ever tried to lift a real log, like out in the woods or whatever? It's all over the place, and it's like, and it's the same with that, isn't it? It takes it away from your body, and it's so much more challenging for your core as well. So
I didn't manage that at all. Like the starting weight, I didn't manage.
Oh, the weight goes up as
So it was similar to the deadlift, where you'd have a set weight and then they'd jump up 20 kilos and you'd have to do it, and I couldn't do the starting weight. So but I never really trained anything overhead then, so I was no surprise, to be honest. So I did that strongman comp, and then 2 weeks after that I did my first ultra marathon, which was 30 miles, starting in Merthyr, running up to Penavan, over Penavan and back. Did that within 1 minute of the cut-off time, because again, I hadn't trained for it. It was just, I wanted to know that I could go from one thing to the other, like running fast to running far with a strong element in between. I was like, I can just do this because I've trained to be able to do anything. And that's where the challenges started to come in. That's where I started noticing like Ross Edgley, David Goggins. And I was like, I'm going to set myself these challenges. COVID kicked in, so that put a spanner in the works. At the time, I was training to do a marathon in full fire kit under air, which is like an additional 40 kilos. And I was like, I could be like first person to do that. Like a lot of people had done it carrying the stuff but not under air, or they'd like swapped out parts of the kit, like the boots were too heavy, and I'm like, that's a shit excuse.
That's what you got to do properly.
If you're doing it, do it properly. So then that had to stop because you couldn't train under air during COVID because you got to share the masks and stuff, and I was like, fair enough, like it's a respiratory disease. And then I snapped my ankle in half then. So then I was 6 months non-weight bearing. At the end of that, when I came out of the boot, is when I did the 1,000 pull-ups, and then I did nothing for 2 years, and it was last year that I started doing it again, and now I've gone overboard.
Gone all out with it.
So
you said 12 challenges. Where are you now?
I'm on number 3 with the Tyre Marathon. So I did a 50-mile barefoot walk across the Brecons, and I did Welsh 3000s, so the 15 tallest mountains in Wales in 24 hours.
How was that?
First time I tried it, failed, like miserably. Because you've got the Snowdon Massive, then you've got the Gliders and the Carneddau. I did the Snowdon Massive, which is 3 mountains out of the 15. Got to the base of the 4th, which is the start of the next section. I was done. My mates basically dragged me to the top of that mountain, and then I was like, I literally cannot do anymore. They were like, oh yeah, like it's over there, that's where we're going. It's like this big horseshoe, and I was like, there's no fucking way I'm going over there. I was like, I'm going back to the car, boys. And then we went back and smashed that first bit, got up that mountain feeling fresh as a daisy. I was like, I've got this in the bag. And then I was like, we're only going over there, and we did the horseshoe, got to that bit, and then because you can see the ridgeline and you can see different mountains, I thought that they were the 15, and I got across them, and my mate was like, yeah, so this is the next mountain.
That's one. It counts as one, does it?
It was like, those ones are ones, they are mountains, but they're not over 3,000 feet. So it's like, they don't count, you're just doing a ridge line to get to this one. And I was like, I really thought that this was the end then. I was like, I thought that was too easy. And then, it got ridiculously hard then. We did it fully self-supported, so we're carrying like sleeping bags and food and stuff with us. which most people will do it like almost like a trail marathon, and they'll be dropped off, run it, get picked up at the end, and it's like, no, we're sleeping. Like, we slept the night before at the train station on Snowdon. So it was a rough night's sleep going into it, and then we slept we found a little bothy, like an emergency shelter.
There's a few of them dotted around over there, isn't it?
Yeah, and it was just, there was like sheep shit everywhere. We just ended up sleeping in the sheep shit because we was just too tired to care. And then we had to hike back like 10k the next morning to get back to the car. So it was like, it's not easy either way. But yeah, so the second time managed to do it, which thank God, because I don't want to go back again. And then yeah, next is the tyre flip marathon.
When are you going to do that then?
August, if the logistics pans out. Because I reckon I've got the world record already. Like, I could rock up and do it now. In my head, I'm that confident that I can do the world record. To do the marathon, 100% need more training. Like, doing the maths, I'm like, this is going to be horrendous. But it's just the logistics of, like we were saying with Guinness, I've got to get a track, I've got to get people to come and watch. Although it has to be on an athletics track, they somehow want me to do a 24-hour video recording without any stops in the video. So I can't change cameras or anything. I don't know any cameras that can record for 24 hours straight unless it's plugged into the main. So
yeah, these are the things I was thinking of, and I don't care about it. I really don't care about these, because when you do a 24-hour challenge, it's long. You do a live stream, could be an option maybe.
Yeah, it's just getting the power to do it, which I'm not even worrying about that till I've got a venue.
You need a support team, I think, if you're going to be doing stuff like that. Someone else to worry about that.
Yeah.
So that you can just focus on your challenge and then just get somebody, a close mate or something. Like, this is your job. That's what I did with the piano. I gave her a list of jobs. It was all
okay.
She sent her, I think Terry was involved. I just sent her a list of jobs. People, you're doing this, you're doing that. This is the plan. If this happens, we're doing that. If that happens, we're doing this. If I break my ankle, we're doing that. Everything was in there. What we're going to do. So it's just basically your job is this, and I think that'd be the best way to do that. We just give it to someone else. Somebody you trust, obviously. I'm sure somebody will be happy to help you.
Yeah, I need to start asking people, because I'm so used to just doing things on my own.
Yeah, that's what I was like as well. And then what I did was with the car marathon, I just kind of went, right, I'm going to actually have to have some help here. So I just went on Facebook and I just said, hey guys, I'm doing this for charity. I need help with people training, coming along. I just sit in the car for an hour while I pull it. And I need help on the actual day as well, just to steer the car and whatever, like. And so many people messaged me and they just said, yeah, I'm free on this date. And I basically just looked at my diary and their diaries, and they said, I'm free Tuesday evenings or something. So I'll be like, okay, I'll book you in Tuesday evening for an hour. I'll just go pick them up, take them to a training, industrial estate or something, and they just steer the car or whatever for an hour. But then a couple of close friends then said, right, we'll be there with you on a day for 24 hours. Yeah. So they all just jumped in the car with me. We drove up there and they just stayed with me for the whole day. And they had jobs, and one of them I was like, you've got to go to sleep at a certain time because you're going to drive us home the next day. So I made sure he had some sleep, so we didn't stay up all night. The rest of us, we stayed up all night. So he went in the car and had a kip for, he probably had about 2 hours or something, but he was a bit more fresh than us. And one of my other mates, he pretty much walked the marathon backwards because he was in front of me the whole time, and he was probably more sore than me actually. he did a whole marathon backwards.
Fair play. Yeah. That's a challenge in itself.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, logistics of these challenges is something I never considered when I was like, I'm going to do 12 of them.
Yeah. Well, I nearly gave up on the marathon because I just couldn't find anywhere to do it.
Yeah.
I just kept messaging people, phoning people, and no, can't do it. No. That's all I got was no for about a few weeks. And then one of them just went, try this place. You can't do it here, but if you try this place, they might be able to. And then that was the last one. And I was like, I'm not going to bother with this anymore. I'll just figure something out. And then, the place was, fine, no problem. You can have the 24 hours between these dates. I was like, oh, amazing. And they just kind of all fell into place then when that happened. So
yeah. Oh, it's wicked to hear that it's not just me that was struggling to get somewhere. Yeah, it is like a genuine issue. It's
a huge issue, I think. Yeah, and another guy who was trying something similar, he had issues trying things. And I think a lot of times if you know someone as well, that helps. If you know someone, or if you don't know people, it's a lot more difficult.
Yeah.
That is the challenge half the time, but it's the challenge nobody sees. They just see you doing that thing, and that's it. They see what you record and what you video, but they don't see the bits beforehand, which is, I think that's why it's so difficult and why so few people actually do stuff like that, because it is hard from the start.
Yeah.
But then it all starts falling into place, and that's what I like, is when you get that venue, so you have the idea, then you get your venue, and then you get your whatever, you get your tyre, and then next thing you know, you've got everything. You're like, oh crap, I'm going to be doing it now. I just got to turn up now, and then you just got to perform. You've got to flip the tyre and just keep going until you finish it, until you get to that target, and you're confident you'll do it.
Thanks. You haven't even seen me training yet. You're like, yeah, this guy's going to do it.
And that's what it's all about.
Yeah.
Training is important, but actually having the mental ability, attitude to just dig on and do it, I think is equally important.
Yeah. Something that I'm coming to realise, and this is something people have been like mentioning to me, is they're like, you're so confident that you're going to be able to do it. Like, why are you so confident that you can do it? And I feel like you have to be for these challenges. Like, you're not going to go into it thinking you're going to fail or thinking that it's going to be too hard for you. Like, you have the realistic expectations that, yes, this is going to be probably the hardest 24 hours of your life. But it's doable. Like, that, you have to tell yourself that. And if you don't, then don't turn up, essentially, because as soon as things get hard, if you're thinking, yeah, it's not doable, when things are hard, it's like, oh, I knew it wasn't doable, and you just give in.
Yeah.
Whereas there was those years where I wasn't confident and I didn't do the challenges, and I went to do the Welsh 3000s, and I didn't know if it was possible or not. I knew people had done it, obviously, but I didn't know if it was possible for me. And that doubt is what killed me off, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas then when I was like, I'm going to do my 50-mile barefoot walk, I went into it being like, I can do the 50 miles easy. I'm going to make it harder. I'm going to do the 50 miles in 24 hours.
Yeah, yeah.
And you just have to go into it that confident, but also not let it almost dictate how you feel if you fail. Because I know doing a marathon, flipping a tyre in 24 hours is extremely unrealistic, judging by the pace that I'm trying to keep in my training, even for half hour, keeping that pace up for 24 hours. I'm like, there's going to be no breaks if I'm going to hit the marathon, and I'm going to need to sit down at some point.
Yeah.
So I want to go into it feeling confident I can do it, but not in the sense that if I then don't do it, it's going to destroy like how I feel about myself, if that makes sense.
I know what you mean. I think you've also got to figure out a plan of action with it as well, haven't you? You've got to test it in your training to say, well, if I do short bursts, short rests, short bursts, short rests, and do it that way rather than going, I got to go all out for some point I'm fucked and I need a long rest. I think the short one might be better, but the only way you can discover that would be practice and your sessions and practicing, and that will get your confidence up, and then you'll go from there. But if, like what you said about things being doable, it's like I remember back when I first joined the Marines, and it wasn't back like how it is now. Everything's on the internet and you can see things everywhere. It was back in those days. It wasn't like the internet was around, but nothing was really on there. Like nothing. Talking about the early 2000s. You go to the Armed Forces Careers office and there'd be like a video VHS playing on, and it'd just be a load of people getting beasted, swinging from ropes, and just the voiceover would basically be telling you how hard it was. Like that's basically all I ever saw of it, or something in the paper. It was like the Marines are hard. That's all it was, and he had the advert. 99.99% you'll apply. If you don't even bother filling out the application form that you used to see on the advert. So that was kind of, I went in there thinking, it was a very unconfident 18-year-old thinking, I don't know, I'll give it a go, like. But I went and I spoke to the guy, the recruitment guy, and he just basically said, it's hard, but it's doable. And I was like, I think he's right. So many people go down there and so many people complete it every month, so it is doable. And any challenge is doable, really, as long as it's within the realms of physics and things like that. And I just broke it down for you. I was like, yeah, it is doable. So if they can do it, I'll start moving people to do it. I think it's very important to kind of realise that things are doable, even if they feel hard. And with the bigger challenges, particularly the ones that go 24 hours or longer, is kind of start off with all this enthusiasm, and then you start getting tired, and then you dip, and then you dip, and then you dip, and then that's when it gets really kind of fucking hard then. But it's that point when you've got to go, fuck you, come on, let's go, crack on, and then you get towards the end's in sight, and you suddenly get this extra strength again, then you can just kind of keep going with all this extra power, and that's, well, I've just found they've got that curve in all of them, so it's just being able to recognise it. When you get through halfway through your marathon of doing the tires, halfway through your distance, you're going to be flagging, you're going to be fucking, I've got to do all that again. But then then that at some point, if my theory's correct anyway, you're going to have this sudden surge of energy towards the end where you're just going to get it out of somewhere, and you've got that ability to just keep pushing. As long as you've got everything right, and nutrition right, and your pacing right, then yeah, just get it done then that way.
Have you ever failed one of your challenges?
Failed as in like the little, like when there's been a time cap on some of them. Like when I've gone, I'm going to copy a military challenge or whatever. I failed a lot of those because I've not done it in like I did try the SAS fan dance with 67 pounds or something like that. And I was way after, but I hadn't ran for bloody donkey's years. Like we did the distance non-stop, but I was way behind the cut-off thing. Yeah. I failed in that respect. But I've never, the ones I've set myself, I've never kind of failed as in I've given up. I've never gone, oh fuck this, I'm stopping. Like I can't do it. Like sometimes I wish I had. Like when I did the 22,000 jumping jacks one, I didn't stop on that one, and you can tell by the end of it, I'm not even doing a jumping jack. I'm just kind of, I'm just kind of hopping because my Achilles tendons weren't working, so I was just kind of hopping on the back of my heels rather than the front of my feet because they weren't working. So I was just kind of bouncing more than anything. But yeah, I probably should have gone. Enough's enough here, guys. I'll do squats or something instead. But no, I've never, since I've been doing the challenges, if I had to just go, no, I have to stop this now and give up, or yeah. I've never done that.
So I think that's something a lot of people deal with. So I was just going to wonder how you approach that, but you've not had to deal with it. So
I dealt with a mental failure before the piano one, though. I defeated myself before I went out there because I was in a position where I was very, very good at lifting weights. Like the rucksack on my back, I was very, very strong throughout the summer. And then I just caught the flu or something, or the illness, and I was really, really unwell in the weeks running up towards the challenge. And I had this training program in my head that I was going to do. I was going to build it all up. I had a niggling injury in my Achilles tendon as well. And it was around about the same time that all the newspapers were going, yeah, this guy from Cardiff, super strong Max Glover, he's going to do this thing, he's going to do it. And I was like, oh, fuck. That's what the pressure was on now, like, and I felt like a fraud, like, because I was like, I could barely get out of bed, like, I was sniffling, I could barely carry my rucksack, I carried it up a local hill. And I was like, fuck, I felt heavy. And there was only about 140 kilos in there. No, 140 kilos in had in it. So in the morning before the piano, then I was doubting myself so much. I was just like, I can't fucking do this. Like, there's no way I'm going to do it. Ankle was hurting, my Achilles was hurting. Just felt rough. I was coughing, I was sneezing. I had word of myself and just was like, right, you just got to sort your shit out. Did my routine, my warm-up routine. I think I went in the bath and just kind of sat there. I may have had a cold bath. I can't remember. I was doing a lot of ice baths at the time. I can't remember if I used that then. I used to use ice baths as a kind of mental kind of grounding, zone myself like. So I kind of had that mental defeat beforehand. I was able to deal with it that way, as in get into routine, get into warming up, and then went and did it. So yeah, I've never actually kind of stopped and gone, no, I can't do it. I threw the towel in. But I think I've had the close one would have been the triple challenge, but I kind of did a bargain with myself there, and I kind of went, I'll have a kick now because I know I've got that appointment in the morning.
Yeah.
Like, so I just kind of wasn't very strict. There wasn't cut-off times and things like that. So, it could quite easily have gone. I'm not going to bother. I could quite easily have done that on the Pen y Fan bit, because when I was walking down, I was just like, this is fucking crazy. Like, no one's going to know if I take these dumbbells out, put them in that bush, hide them in that bush, walk up to the top, video myself, walk back and then pick the dumbbells up. No one's going to know that, are they? I could have done that. But it was so difficult to not do that. But I said to myself, you've got to fucking do it. There was no question in my mind. But a lot of that's come from the military, because you weren't allowed to do stuff like that in the military. Because people would sometimes do that. When you did a weighted run in the military, they'd weigh your kit beforehand, but then they'd also weigh it at the end. They might even wait halfway through just to make sure that you're not chucking your water out or whatever, or losing weight. So I think that discipline has come from the military to not do that, even though the voices in my head were telling me to do that, just because you start telling yourself, I'm going to injure myself, I'm in pain, this is really hard, I'm never going to do it, I'm going to get hypothermia, or whatever these thoughts were in my head. So I was just fighting them and just carrying on, and to the point where I was just stumbling down pretty much.
Yeah. Do you feel like you've learnt some mental tools from the military that's helped you deal with these challenges and these hard times?
Everything you do, I think you learn from, or I think you should learn from, and that is learning from mistakes. I made a hell of a lot of mistakes in that one, but I could have made that a lot easier for myself by planning things better and prepping things better, which I did know from the military. I look back, and I've made notes on it as well. I look back, and everything I did there, everything I failed upon, I should have known better. And I had such a break from doing challenges, and there'd been such a long gap that I'd left the military, so I was a bit of an amateur. But you've got this toolbox where everything you do, as long as you remember it, as long as you do it, you complete it, goes in that toolbox, then you can apply that tool then for whatever situation you're in. And I think that's just how we've got to approach challenges, life, training, anything really. Any kind of time something comes up and you deal with it, as long as you remember how you dealt with it and then learn from it and apply it to future scenarios, that's the way ahead in my opinion.
What would be the 3 most useful tools in your toolbox then for when things get to, you said about there's that rise in enthusiasm and then there's that dip. When you're at that bottom of that dip, no matter what it is, because it's going to come in life as well.
Yeah.
What are the 3 most useful tools for that moment that then help you push through rather than just giving up?
I think if you're able to prepare in advance, that's the most important thing, because you know you've prepared, you know you've trained, you've got things. So when we're talking about a physical challenge like the long distance one, you've got your fuel, you've got your stuff all ready to go, so that when you're struggling, you've made it that little bit easier for yourself, that you've got a Tupperware container with your banana or whatever in that you need to fuel, so you're not walking around trying to find your food, it's just there ready to go. So little things like that, I think it's very, very important to prepare beforehand, so that when you do get to that bit, it's a little bit easier, rather than just going, I'm gonna cuff it. That's what I've learned, is preparedness is the most important thing. After that, then it's just kind of knowing about pacing yourself and about just cracking on and knowing that it is hard, and when you recognise it's hard, but you know it's going to get better, and you know there is going to be an end, and that's the important thing as well, is that it may be dark at that point, but you know there is an end. Like when I did the car marathon, there was a point in the middle of the night where I was like, this just seems to be going on forever, this track just seems to be going on forever. And eventually the sun came out, and when the sun came out, I had this renewed energy, and then I knew, hang on a second, I've only got to go around 2 more times now. I've got a few more. So I just said to the guys, this is the plan, we're going to go around here, and then we're going to go around again, and then we're going to run up there. And they were like, oh, okay, let's go. Boom. And we just finished it, and that was how, excuse me, we ended on a high. So I think it is just recognising that things are shit, but it's a roller coaster. And that's life in general as well, it's a roller coaster. You have good times, you have bad times, but it's just trying not to lose sight of the fact that it might be bad, there will be a better time. Like, I remember times I've been down in the dumps, really low, real bad places, and I could have ended it. You know what I mean? If I had the, if I could have done, like I may have done. But if I had have done that, then so many things, like all these things we're talking about, we wouldn't be having this conversation now. My son wouldn't exist. Our relationships, things wouldn't have happened. So even though I was in a shit place there, all that good has come from by taking the two options. One of them was jump off a cliff. The other one is just carry on and things will get better, and they do get better. But again, it's up and down, constantly up and down. So I think it's just having that kind of confidence that things will get better.
Yeah. No, I think that's a really good point to start wrapping this up. I think that is a very powerful message. So I don't want to go on too much longer after that.
Okay.
Now, something I do at the end of every podcast, like I mentioned to you, you're the first person that's had a briefing knowing that this is coming first.
Okay. We're talking about preparedness, aren't we?
I'm intrigued to see what you've come up with. the end of each episode, I get the guest to set the listeners a weekly challenge. So, what is your challenge for the listeners this week?
If you'd asked me that about 4 years ago, I would have said, okay, we're going to do 500 burpees followed by 200. Nothing like that now, because no one will be somebody out there who will go, well, I'm already doing that. Or it'll be not applied to someone, or half of them probably won't even do it. But my challenge is to just, whatever it is you're doing, training wise or in life or whatever it's doing, just try and find a way to add another dimension to it. So say we'll talk about training. If we're talking about training, say you're a runner, for example, try and add something that you're not doing that could benefit you. So perhaps weight training, or perhaps mobility, flexibility, yoga, or something along those lines, or some kind of meditation or whatever. Just try something that's different and that will add another depth or another layer to your training. Try it for a few weeks and just watch yourself. Only maybe one session a week. You don't need to go all out on it. Or if you're doing weight training, add a bit of cardio, and then just watch yourself get that little bit better at that as your body adapts over the next sort of few weeks. And you should start to feel renewed enthusiasm, and also, hopefully anyway, benefit to adding that other layer and become a better performing individual in general.
Amazing. I love that challenge. That is, a great challenge, because like you said, the others are so specific that either they're going to be too easy, too hard, or just not, people aren't interested. Like if you're just like, 1,000 burpees, how many people are going to be like, woo, yeah, let's do 1,000 burpees? They're probably going to be like, nah, fuck off, I'm not doing that. So yeah, I love that side.
And hopefully something people could benefit from as well. And that's the reason I say that's because something I've done quite recently as well. And I've started adding a couple of little things in just at the end of the session or a separate day, and I'm really enjoying it. And it's a fun session for me now. But it's also relevant to my training, so that's why I want to leave it up to the viewers or the listeners to decide. Think of something that's going to benefit them, something they're not doing, and because there's something new, there's going to be so much room for improvement for them, because they're going to start off, they're probably rubbish at it, but they'll get better and better and better at it, and then they'll be able to see that progression and hopefully add a little bit of fun into their but it'll be that pressure for them to perform as well, so they'll have just fun with it, hopefully.
Thank you for coming on. Where can people go to support you and what you're doing online?
So online, I've got Instagram, which is Muscle World Fitness. I've got a YouTube channel called Muscle World as well, and I've got a couple of books online as well. You only pick them up on Amazon. A couple of training programs. Just search for Max Glover on there, and I've got my kind of book about all the challenges as well, which is called Challenge What You Think, Believe What Is Possible, and that just kind of talks about a lot of things in life, whether it be little challenges and how we've learned from them, and little takeaway points that hopefully people can learn from when they read it, so that if they're going to try and do any challenges or whatever, they can learn from any mistakes I made or any things that I've picked up along the way.
Yeah. I'm actually ashamed to say this, but I haven't read your book, and it's on my to read list, and I really wanted to read it because I first added it on when I saw you on the Rockman website.
Oh, no way. Okay, yeah.
Because I was looking at everyone that was on Team Rockman.
Yeah.
That's how I got Bob Thomas on. That's how I found out about Terry in the first place. That was directed through Reece Jenkins, and I just looked at everyone and I saw you had a book and I was like, that's on my to read list. But my Amazon to read list, I looked at it yesterday, there's 250 books on there.
Yeah.
And I've already got 2 full bookcases downstairs of books I haven't read yet. So I'm like, I'm gonna give myself a pass on that, but I really wanted to read it before getting you on.
Yeah, don't worry.
But then just meeting Terry, and he was like, you need to get Max on, and I was like, okay, I'll get him on. I haven't read his book, but I'm sure it's amazing.
So you know all the answers anyway to the questions, so it's probably good you didn't read it.
No, well, thank you for coming on.
So thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure meeting you and coming on as well.
I'm glad you enjoyed it, and I urge anyone to grab a copy of it.
Thank you very much.
Amazing. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you want to find out more about our guests, check out the links in the description below, where you'll also find a link to our website, our socials, and my BigMoose fundraiser. Let us know in the comments who you want to hear from next, and we'll try and get them booked on as best we can. And if you want to get involved with anything Adventure Athletes, we've got so many things going on. We've got our programming that we'll do for people trying to take their next step into their own personal adventures. We'll do sports massage. We've got events that we're organising both online and in person, and we've got some different activity days based around getting you outdoors and learning something new. So if you want to get involved, check out the website. If you want to find out more about the guest, check out the links in the description, and yeah, let us know who you want on next.